So which Ford Thunderbird generation was the most popular and which was the best V8 engine of those different generations? Now, the best-selling Ford Thunderbird generation was actually the 7th generation Ford Thunderbird and actually the 10th generation Ford Thunderbird. Now, it was the early 1960s and late 1950s that made the Thunderbird as popular as it was, but really the bigger ones with the bigger V8 engines and the FE engines became the bread and butter engines of the 1960s and the 1970s. But then when the CAFE standards starting to tighten up a little bit, they had to get a little more creative with the 2.3 liter turbocharged engine. Then they had the smaller Windsor small block V8s, and then they eventually went to the Essex V6 as well as the Windsor V8, and eventually the final generation had the single overhead cam modular V8. So I would say the 7th generation is definitely the. What are the most important vehicles to Ford's history, and what are the best V8 engines? So we're going to go over a couple of the bullet points and the most important part of Ford's history. Now, the moving assembly line has to be Ford's greatest invention. This made the Model T being able to build in 90 minutes instead of 13 hours. So that was their first biggest accomplishment. The Model T then set sales records, selling over 15 million units in the lifespan of the Model T and selling over 4 million units just in 1923 and 1924 alone. Then after that, it is probably the Ford Flathead. Because of the reliability and the one-piece monoblock casting, the Ford Flathead is considered Ford's greatest manufacturing invention because it basically had no changes to it the whole time except for a couple of modifications, and it lasted for 21 years. Then the Ford Thunderbird and the Ford Mustang, as far as vehicles, if you're talking about after the Model T and after the Model 18, which was the first vehicle to have the Flathead, the Mustang and the Thunderbird carried the torch for the pushrod engines for the remainder of the 20th century. Basically, they had every version from the Y block to the FE engines to small blocks to big blocks to turbocharged 2.3 four-cylinder single overhead cam engines. The Thunderbird and the Mustang are the two best examples of sort of the V8 or engine evolution. Chevy, on the other hand, once they came out the small block, that was the foundation for Chevy, and that is still going on today. But Ford, I think from the Flathead, the first four-cylinder side valve engine, and then the evolution to the Cleveland engines, the FE engines, the Windsor engines, the Y block, the modular engines, the single overhead cam, Coyote dual overhead cam, they had the biggest evolution